If you think food can't both be fancy and fun, or that nachos should be restricted to the bar, well, you're wrong.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong.
Today we're gonna make salmon nachos that play a lot on the flavors of sushi and kind of like a poke bowl, but in a completely reimagined way. Is this gonna be traditional? Absolutely not. No, not even close. Before we get cooking, I want to point out that in addition to these videos where I break things down into quick, simple recipes, I do free online cooking classes where I will put up a live stream about a week in advance with a list of ingredients. So then that way you can go out, buy those things, tune in during that time, and then cook right along with me, asking any questions you may have. If there's any dishes you want to see for one of these live cooking classes, let me know down below so I can try to make that happen. At some point we're going to be doing a duck dish because of my buddy Victor and what he wants to see. All right, let's get started and go Pats. Alrighty, meow.
I'm sorry, are you saying meow?
Am I saying meow?
Let's get going with our prep, and the first thing we're going to do is cook our rice. So to do that, we're going to take all of our rice, put it into a pot, put it in a carefully measured amount of water, put it on the stove, bring it to a boil, and cook it till it's done, right? No, wrong! We don't want to make Uncle Roger upset, so the first thing we're going to do is actually wash our rice.
So you don't wash the rice? How you don't wash the rice? Just cook the rice, not the rice stinky like you.
And we're not going to do that once, not twice, but 3 times. 3 is the number of washings we will do.
Shalt thou count to 3? No more, no less.
Once the water is completely clear from the 3rd washing, we're going to take the rice, put it back into the container for the rice cooker. And yes, we're using a rice cooker and not a pot because technology is wonderful. Then we're going to put enough water in until when you put your finger down into the pot, it comes up to your first knuckle.
Just use finger. You put rice, put water until finger. First joint the finger.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Wait, don't we all have different length fingers? Isn't that knuckle height going to be different on everybody? Meh, doesn't matter, always works. Now, in this case, I'm actually going to come up a little bit shallow from my first knuckle, and the reason for that is because I'm making sushi rice, so I want it to be a little stickier, and you need a little bit less water than conventional rice. We're going to take that, put it into the rice cooker, put it on the sushi setting, let that go, and move on to our next task. Preheat a pot of oil to 350 degrees. And so then next, back to our main task, which is we are going to cut salmon. In this case, I have some Faroe Island salmon, which is some bomb farm salmon. It's one of the few farm salmons that is actually good. And we're going to take our knife, put it in the end, and use that to slide it around the base as to remove the skin. Dice up the salmon, first cutting into strips, into strip-eater strips, and finally cut back across so we have a nice dice. We're going to take all of that, put it into a container, set that aside. Very importantly, wash our board, knife, and hands. Next task I'm going to do is take some pickled ginger and run my knife through it until it's cut into really, really small pieces. Again, put that into a container and set that aside. And any of these 3 tasks that I'm doing, the salmon, the ginger, or the next task, which is an aioli, you can really do in any order. Does not matter. This is just one I chose completely arbitrarily. The next task is making wasabi aioli, aka pre-dinner mayo.
Now it's time for some pre-dinner mayonnaise. Good for you.
Only we're not gonna have it for pre-dinner. That's weird. We are going to combine 1 raw egg yolk with Dijon mustard, a whole bunch of wasabi, and more rice wine vinegar than I intended. Give it a good whisk, add salt and pepper, and again, keep whisking it as we slowly stream in canola oil. We're going to keep adding oil until this thickens up. Now, I ended up making up way too much because, again, too much rice wine vinegar in there. That's my fault for eyeballing it and not carefully measuring it out. But it'll eventually come together, and right when it gets to the thickness that you want, we are going to add just a little bit of sesame oil. We are going to load this into a piping bag like you've seen before on this channel, and then use that piping bag to load it into the squeeze bottle I have that has way too small of a lid. That way we don't make a big old mess as we do this. When it comes to frying wontons, we're going to take our frozen block of wontons that are hopefully a little bit more defrosted than mine and cut into it as far as you can on both ends, then slowly peel them away. If need be, just let it sit out and thaw a little bit more, then cut again a little bit further deeper and allow the individual pieces to fall off as needed. Separate them off into individual wrappers. And now it's time to fry. We're going to go over to our oil that that should be at 350 degrees with a thermometer in there. Put in a decent amount. Don't be afraid to work in batches. You don't want to overcrowd the pan. And as you can see, when I throw these in there, it is going to sizzle up, which is why you want a pot with extra room, so then that way you don't run a risk of oil boiling over. Using a small spider, we're going to move the chips around within the oil to make sure that they cook evenly until they have a nice slight golden color. Once they start having that beautiful color and they're nice and crisp, we're going to move them to a plate that is lined with a paper towel. After we've moved all of the chips from the oil to the paper towel, we're going to season them generously with salt, set them aside and allow them to cool. We're going to mix just a little bit of rice wine vinegar with some salt and sugar. We're going to take that rice, dump it out into a bowl, dump in our vinegar, salt, and sugar mixture, and slowly kind of cut it in, and then fold the rice over gently. We're not really mixing it in. You could use a big old ricing that you see in traditional sushi shops, but personally, I don't have room for one of those in my apartment. A bowl and a spoon work just fine. The other thing you want to do is you'll want to fan off the rice to help get rid of the extra moisture, and you can just use a plate, a piece of plastic, whatever you have lying around for that. You don't need anything really special.
Remember, there's no rules in the anabolic kitchen. You make things the way you want to make it taste good for you.
We are also going to add a whole bunch of rice seasoning. Now you can pick this up in any Asian market. There's a whole bunch of slightly different variants on flavors, but they are all super yummy. Once that's nicely mixed, we're going to return it back to the rice bowl and throw it back into the rice maker and just keep it on warm. That's it, all of our prep is done. Now you can set all this aside and prep out other stuff, or whenever you're ready to fire and eat this, let's move ahead with the finishing steps. When you're ready to serve this, we're going to take a plate and a big old ring mold of some kind, and then we're going to put down a thin layer of rice into the bottom layer, and we're going to kind of push that down as to create a nice sturdy base.
Oh my.
Then we're going to take a little bit of kabayaki sauce. You might not have heard of kabayaki sauce, but this is the sauce on eel that you have in sushi restaurants. We're gonna put a little bit of that on top, as well as pickled ginger and some of the rice seasoning. Next up, we're going to add some seaweed salad. Again, this comes directly out of a container, nothing complicated there. We are going to mix our salmon with just a tiny bit of sesame oil and a little bit of salt, and then put that on top, and again, press it down so it stays nicely in the mold. We're going to remove our mold, then top it with our wasabi aioli and a little bit more of the kabayaki sauce, just a little bit more of that rice seasoning. Next, we're going to make up a nice line directly next to this with our fried wonton chips, and that's it. As you can see, this dish looks super pretty and it is incredibly simple to put together. After all that work, let's eat. As you can see, this was not super hard to put together, but it nonetheless looks amazing, and let's see how it tastes. That is so good. There are just so many like wonderful comfort flavors. Again, it's by no means traditional, but you get all of those sushi flavors that you really love. There's, you know, the soy, the fish, the wasabi. Oh man, and you know, the seaweed too. Just like all of it, it adds in together just so nicely. Don't forget to look up for the next time I post a live cooking class so you can get all the ingredients and cook right along. If you're still here, give the video a like. Let me know down below what you want to see in a future video. And until next time, I'll see you.